My daughter-in-law had never been afraid of anything in all the years I had known her. But that morning, her hands were shaking uncontrollably when she pressed a thick envelope into mine and whispered, "Pack a bag. Logan, you have 24 hours before they come for you." I thought she was overreacting, maybe even losing her mind, until that very night when I overheard something that made my blood run cold. What I heard turned Sophia's warning into the most real and terrifying thing I had ever experienced. The next morning, I left the house in complete silence. Not because I was running away in fear, but because I needed time and space to uncover the truth. When I finally returned days later, I carried proof in my hands that would destroy every single person who had betrayed me. If you're watching this story, please subscribe to the channel, like button, and tell me in the comments where you're listening from. Before I reveal what was inside that envelope and exactly how I uncovered the whole ugly truth, let me tell you who I am. My name is Logan Bennett, 71 years old, a retired contractor living quietly in Scottsdale, Arizona. After my wife Dorothy passed away 5 years ago, I had settled into a simple routine that kept the loneliness away. Coffee at 6:30 sharp, reading the newspaper on the patio, maybe a little gardening before the desert heat became too much. Those small things were enough for a simple man. That Thursday morning started exactly like every other day. I was sitting at the kitchen table with my favorite coffee mug, the one that says "World's Best Grandpa" that my daughter-in-law Sophia had given me last Christmas, even though she and my son Carter still hadn't given me any grandchildren. The Arizona sun was streaming through the windows, and I was reading about the Diamondbacks' chances this season. Not great, but I'm a loyal fan. Then Sophia walked in, and I knew instantly that something was terribly wrong. You need to understand something important about Sophia. She had been married to my son Carter for 10 full years, and she had been an absolute blessing to our family. After Dorothy died, this house had felt like a tomb, cold and empty. But Sophia brought warmth and life back into every room. She works as a senior wealth manager at Chase Bank downtown. Smart as anyone I've ever met with numbers and investments, always making sure my retirement accounts were protected and growing. She started calling me Dad from the very first month. And over the years, I had grown to depend on her good sense about money matters. But the woman who walked into my kitchen that morning was not the calm, professional Sophia I knew. Her hands were trembling so badly she could barely hold the envelope. Her face was white as a sheet, and she kept looking over her shoulder like someone might be watching us right then. This was a woman who handled multi-million-dollar accounts every day without breaking a sweat, and now she looked like she was about to collapse. "Dad," she whispered, voice barely audible, "I need to give you something." She pulled a plain manila envelope from behind her back, and written across the front in thick black marker were the words, "You have 24 hours to prepare." My blood turned to ice. "Sophia!" "Honey, what is this?" I asked, my own voice shaking now. She placed the envelope on the table between us like it might explode at any second. "I can't explain everything right now." "It's not safe," she said quickly. "But you have to promise me something very important." "Anything, sweetheart," I answered. "Don't open this until you're completely alone. Don't ask me any questions right now. And whatever you do, do not tell Carter." Tears started forming in her eyes. "I wish I could explain, Dad. But right now you have to trust me," she whispered. "Your life depends on it." Before I could say another word, she turned and practically ran out of the kitchen. I heard the front door slam, then her SUV starting up and speeding away. And there I was, sitting alone with my cold coffee and an envelope that suddenly felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. I stared at those words, You have 24 hours to prepare, and felt the same gut-deep fear I hadn't experienced since my army days in Vietnam. Outside, the neighborhood was waking up like any normal Thursday. Mrs. Henderson walking her little dog, the mail truck making its rounds, kids heading to school with backpacks bouncing. But inside my house, everything had changed forever. I picked up the envelope with hands that weren't steady anymore. Whatever was inside was going to turn my quiet retirement upside down. And I already knew I was right. 20 minutes later, I locked myself in my home office. A room filled with 50 years of memories, family photos, business awards, everything that proved I had lived an honest life. Now this envelope sat on my desk like a bomb waiting to go off. My hands shook as I finally tore it open. 4 items fell out: a one-way Amtrak ticket to Portland, Oregon, leaving that same afternoon with my name clearly printed. A small black USB drive I didn't dare touch yet. A short handwritten note from Sophia that said, "Trust no one else," and a photograph that made my heart stop cold. It was me walking out of Chase Bank last Friday, taken from across the street with a professional telephoto lens. Crystal clear. The house phone rang, and I jumped so hard I almost knocked over the lamp. "Dad!" Sophia's voice came through, tight with fear. "Did you open it, Sophia? There's a picture of me. Someone's been following me," I said. "I know how this looks, Dad. But listen very carefully," she answered, switching to her calm banker voice. "Someone has been watching you for weeks. They know your every routine, every schedule. But why I demanded, I'm just a retired old man." "No, Dad," she said. "You are still co-signatory on every single Bennett construction account. Your digital signature still has full authorization power for major financial transfers." My blood went cold again. When I stepped back 7 years ago, I had kept my name on the accounts to help Carter if he ever needed it. It had seemed like the smart thing to do at the time. "They want to frame you for money laundering through the company," she continued. "Make it look like you've been moving illegal funds yourself. With your signature authority, it would look completely believable." "That's insane," I whispered. "I would never do that. I know that, Dad. But on paper, an older man with full account access might look desperate in retirement. Maybe not thinking clearly. It would be convincing to investigators," she said. The room started spinning around me. All those years building an honest reputation, and someone wanted to destroy everything in one stroke. "Sophia, how do you know all this?" I asked. "Because I work at the bank, Dad. I see things. I hear conversations," she answered. "Yesterday I overheard something that terrified me. Your name came up with words like federal investigation and arrest warrant." Her voice cracked. "Dad, the police are coming tomorrow morning. Early. They think they have solid evidence." I stared at the USB drive still sitting untouched on my desk. Whatever was on it, I wasn't sure I wanted to know yet. "Sophia, this doesn't make any sense," I said. "I know." "Dad, that's why you have to leave tonight," she replied. The surveillance photograph lay next to the train ticket, both staring up at me like accusations I didn't understand. Someone had been planning this for a long time, watching me, waiting for the perfect moment to destroy everything I had built. And according to Sophia, that moment was tomorrow morning. I looked around my office one last time, at Dorothy's smiling face in our wedding photo, at the awards that suddenly meant so much less, at the USB drive that might contain the evidence to bury me forever. For the first time in my adult life, I didn't know what to do. By evening, I had made up my mind. Whatever was happening, Carter needed to know about it. My son had been acting completely normal all day, Came home from the office around 6:30, kissed Sophia, asked about dinner plans, just regular family stuff. But Sophia's warnings kept echoing in my head, and that surveillance photo felt like it was burning a hole in my desk drawer. Carter was a good son, or at least I had always believed he was. Sure, he could be ambitious, sometimes a little too focused on growing the business, but he would never do anything to hurt me. We were partners. For God's sake, I had built Bennett Construction from nothing and handed him the reins when I was ready to step back. He respected that. He respected me. Or so I thought. Around 10 o'clock that night, I heard him on a phone call in his home office. The door was closed, but I could hear his voice through the thin walls of our ranch-style house. Something about his tone made me stop in the hallway. It was sharper than usual, colder, more businesslike than I had ever heard from him. I figured I would wait until he finished. Then knock and have an honest father and son talk about everything Sophia had told me. Maybe together we could figure this nightmare out. But as I got closer to the door, actual words started coming through clearly. "Don't worry about the old man," Carter said. And I froze solid. Was he talking about me? "He'll take the fall. He won't even see it coming," he continued, voice full of satisfaction. My heart started pounding so hard I was sure he would hear it through the door. This couldn't be what it sounded like. It had to be about some client, some business deal, someone else entirely. "By tomorrow night he'll be in custody, and I'll have full control of everything," Carter said. The hallway tilted violently. I had to put my hand against the wall to keep from falling over. 50 years he's been running this company, making every decision. Well, not anymore. He went on, and I felt something inside me start to die. The beauty of it is, he'll never suspect his own son set him up. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't move. My son, my own flesh and blood, was talking about destroying me and enjoying every second of it. The forged signatures are perfect. Even Sophia thinks they're real. And she works at the bank. He laughed. A cold sound I had never heard from him before. Dad always said trust was the foundation of any good business. Guess he was wrong about that. I don't remember walking back to my bedroom. I don't remember sitting on the edge of the bed where Dorothy and I had slept for 41 years. All I remember is staring at the wall and feeling the last piece of my heart break. The boy I had taught to throw a baseball. The teenager I had brought to job sites every summer. The man I had trusted with my life's work was going to let me rot in prison for crimes I never committed. And he was enjoying it. My hands shook as I pulled out an old suitcase from the closet. I didn't pack much, just some clothes, my medications, and the envelope Sophia had given me. Everything else in this house suddenly felt like it belonged to strangers. As I folded my shirts, I could still hear Carter's voice echoing from down the hall. Still making plans. Still destroying 50 years of my life with every word. 50 years of trust gone in one night. I whispered to myself, repeating his words like a curse. By 4 a.m, I was ready to leave. The house was completely quiet now. Carter and Sophia were asleep in their room, probably dreaming about the future they thought they had stolen from me. I took one last look around the kitchen, where I had shared coffee with Sophia just 15 hours earlier. Everything looked exactly the same, but nothing would ever be the same again. I picked up my suitcase and walked out the front door of the only home I had known for 35 years. My son wanted me gone. Fine. I was gone. The Amtrak station at 5:30 in the morning was exactly what you would expect. Fluorescent lights buzzing, coffee that could strip paint, and people who looked like they were running from something. I fit right in. I paid cash for the exact ticket that had been in the envelope. Portland, Oregon, one way. The train pulled out of Phoenix as the sun came up, painting the desert in shades of gold and orange that Dorothy had always loved so much. I pressed my face to the window and watched my city disappear behind me, wondering if I would ever see it again. For the next 26 hours, I had nothing to do but think. And believe me, I thought. I thought about the first time I held Carter as a baby, how proud I had been to have a son to carry on the family name. I thought about teaching him to use power tools when he was 11, how his face lit up when he drove his first nail perfectly straight. I thought about the day I made him full partner in Bennett Construction, how we shook hands in that same office where he had just planned my destruction. How long had he been plotting this? Months. Years. Had every family dinner been a lie? Every I love you. Dad just part of some long con. The train made stops in Flagstaff, Las Vegas, Sacramento. People got on and off living their normal lives while I sat there feeling like my entire world had been turned inside out. A young mother with twin toddlers reminded me of when Sophia was trying to get pregnant a few years back. An older couple holding hands reminded me of Dorothy and me in our better days. Everything reminded me of the family I had just lost in one terrible night. We rolled into Portland around 3 in the afternoon under cold, gray Pacific Northwest skies. I found a cheap motel called the Columbia River Inn that rented rooms by the week and didn't ask for credit cards. The desk clerk, a young woman with pink hair and tattoos, handed me a key to room 214 without ever looking up from her phone. The room was exactly what $45 a night gets you. Thin walls, worn carpet, and a smell that suggested the last guest had smoked 2 packs a day and owned 3 cats. But it had a bed and a small desk with an ancient computer the clerk said guests could use for free. I sat down at that computer and pulled out the USB drive I had been carrying like a loaded gun. My hands were shaking again as I finally plugged it in. What I found made my stomach turn inside out. File after file of financial transfers from Bennett Construction's main operating account. Dozens and dozens of them going back 9 months. Each transfer ranged from $75,000 to $400,000. Every single one went to offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands, Luxembourg, and Singapore. And every single one carried my perfect digital signature. If I hadn't known better, I would have sworn I had authorized every transaction myself. $4.7 million gone, laundered, stolen, all in my name. I scrolled through the dates, trying to remember where I had been when these transfers supposedly happened. Doctor's appointments, grocery shopping, Wednesday night poker with the guys, living my quiet retirement while someone used my identity to commit federal crimes. The motel phone started ringing, making me jump like I had been shot. I stared at it for 4 rings before picking up. Nobody knew I was here. Nobody should be calling this number. "Hello," I croaked. "Dad, thank God you made it safely." Sophia's voice came through, steady but urgent. "Sophia, how did you know I would be at this exact motel?" I asked. "Because I've been planning this escape for weeks. Dad, not the way Carter has been planning your destruction. I've been trying to protect you," she answered. She explained that she had been watching Carter for months. Something had felt wrong. He was having secret meetings with men in expensive suits she didn't recognize. Meetings after hours at the office. Your name kept coming up in those conversations along with words like accounts and signatures, she said. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" I asked. "Because I hoped I was wrong." "Dad, I didn't want to believe my own husband could do something this terrible to the man who has been a real father to me, she replied, voice breaking. Hearing her call me a father figure after everything Carter had said hit me hard. What am I supposed to do now? I whispered. Those records on the USB are forgeries. Dad. I know because I work at the bank and I've been doing my own quiet investigation, she said. There are inconsistencies that prove every transaction is manufactured, she continued. Hope flickered inside me for the first time in days. You can prove I'm innocent, I asked. I can, but we have to be smart. We need solid evidence that will hold up in federal court, she answered. We need to catch Carter admitting everything on record. Sophia, this sounds incredibly dangerous, I said. What if he finds out you're helping me? He won't, Dad. As far as Carter knows, I completely believe his story that you had a breakdown and ran away. She replied, he thinks I'm devastated and supporting him 100%. Are you sure you want to risk this? I asked. Her voice turned fierce. Dad, you are the only real family I have left. When I married Carter, I thought I was getting a husband and a father-in-law. Instead, I got something so much better. A dad who actually cares about me, treats me with respect, never lets me down. Tears started forming in my eyes. Carter may be my husband by law, but you are my family. And I protect my family, she said. What's the plan? I asked. Stay put one more day. Let me gather every piece of evidence I can from the bank. She answered. Tomorrow evening, come back to Arizona. We'll set a trap for Carter and end this nightmare once and for all. What if the police are watching the house? I asked. They're not. Carter convinced them you're a flight risk who fled to Canada. He's bought us time, she said. You really think we can prove he's behind everything? I asked. Dad, I know we can. Trust me, she replied, voice full of determination and love. Okay, I trust you, I said. Good. I'll call tomorrow with the final details. And Dad, we are going to get through this together, she finished. After she hung up, I felt something I hadn't felt since this nightmare began. Real hope. Sophia was right. We were family, and family protects each other. I started planning my return to Arizona. Friday morning found me on another southbound Amtrak train, this time heading home. But I was no longer the broken man who had fled north 2 days earlier. I had a plan now, and more importantly, I had an ally. The first stop when I reached Phoenix was the law office of James Mitchell, my attorney for 42 years. James had handled everything for me, incorporating Bennett Construction, Dorothy's estate planning, every contract dispute over 5 decades. His office still smelled of leather and coffee, same oak furniture, same law books lining the walls. James looked older than I remembered. More gray hair, deeper lines around his eyes, but his handshake was still strong. Logan, you look like hell, he said, pointing me to the chair across from his desk. Sophia called yesterday, said you were in some kind of serious trouble. He continued. I spent the next 2 hours telling him everything. The envelope, the surveillance photo, the USB drive with its damning records, Carter's phone conversation, my escape to Portland. All of it. James listened without interrupting, making notes on a yellow legal pad the whole time. When I finished, he leaned back and whistled low. This is federal fraud on a massive scale. Logan, money laundering, forgery, conspiracy. We're talking decades in prison for whoever orchestrated this. Can you prove I'm innocent with what I've shown you? I asked. Absolutely, he said, tapping the USB drive. These digital signatures have forensic markers that scream forgery. The timing of the transactions doesn't match your documented whereabouts, and that surveillance photo actually works in our favor. It proves you were being watched and set up. For the first time in days, my shoulders relaxed a little. So what do we do now? I asked. We set a trap. Get Carter to incriminate himself on record. James answered. I'll contact Detective Morales at Phoenix PD. He's handled white-collar cases for me before, good man. Completely honest. Saturday morning, I walked into Bennett Construction headquarters like I still owned the place. Which technically I did. Carter was at his desk reviewing contracts when he saw me. His face went through shock, guilt, then fake concern in less than 3 seconds. Dad, what are you doing here? He asked. Voice full of practiced worry. Sophia said you had some kind of breakdown and just disappeared. Just needed time to think. Son, clear my head, I said, trying to sound defeated. You were right. Retirement has been harder than I expected. His relief was almost funny to watch. Of course. Dad, it's a big adjustment. But don't worry, I've been handling everything here. The business is in good hands, he said quickly. I know it is. That's why I want to make it official, I replied, pulling out a thick folder James had prepared. These are the final papers to transfer my remaining authority completely over to you. Make the transition 100% clean. Carter's eyes lit up like a child on Christmas morning. Really, you want to do that now? He asked. Already reaching for the documents. No time like the present. I'm too old for this kind of stress anyway. I said. He practically snatched the papers from my hands, scanning them quickly. Greed written all over his face. What he was looking at were carefully crafted documents that would authorize 5 massive new fraudulent transfers. Transfers that would be impossible to explain away once the authorities arrived. This looks perfect. Dad. Really comprehensive, he said, reaching for his pen. This makes everything clean and simple. No loose ends, he added, echoing the exact words I had heard him say on that phone call. No loose ends, I repeated quietly. You sure about this? Carter, once you sign, there's no going back. I warned. I'm sure, he said, signature flowing across every page with confident strokes. This is exactly what the business needs. He had just finished the last signature when the sound I had been waiting for finally came. Heavy footsteps in the hallway. The office door burst open with a crash. Phoenix police, nobody move. Detective Morales stormed in with 4 uniformed officers, weapons drawn but pointed down. Carter jumped up from his desk, papers flying everywhere, face cycling through confusion, panic, then pure terror. What the hell is this? He shouted. Carter Bennett, you're under arrest for fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy to commit federal crimes, Detective Morales announced. Voice like steel. Dad. Carter's voice cracked as he looked at me. Dad, what did you do? I stood up slowly, feeling 50 years of trust crumble into dust. What I should have done the night I heard you planning to destroy me. I answered. The color drained completely from his face. You heard that phone call, he whispered. Every single word. Son, I said. The old man will take the fall. He won't even see it coming. Detective Morales moved forward with handcuffs. Turn around. Mr. Bennett. That's when Sophia walked in right on cue. Logan. What's happening? She cried, seeing Carter being handcuffed. Oh my God. What did you do to him? She rushed to my side, face full of concern. Dad, are you okay? Did he hurt you? I knew something was wrong when you disappeared, she added, voice trembling. Carter, I can explain. Carter started desperately. Explain what Sophia snapped. voice fierce and protective. How you tried to frame your own father. How you made him run away in terror. I felt a surge of gratitude. At least Sophia was still on my side. Detective Morales started leading Carter toward the door. "We need to go," he said firmly. That's when Carter suddenly stopped walking and turned back with wild, angry eyes. "You know what? I'm not going down alone for this," he shouted. "Carter, don't make this worse," Sophia warned. "Worse," he laughed bitterly. "Why don't you tell him the truth?" Sweetheart Sophia stepped closer to me protectively. "Dad, don't listen to him. He's desperate. He'll say anything," she said quickly. "Tell him how you betrayed me," Carter yelled. "Tell him you're the one who planned everything." He hesitated, looking between Sophia and me with something like fear. "The one who what?" "Carter," I asked quietly. Carter's voice dropped to a whisper, eyes never leaving Sophia's face. "The one who planned it all from the very beginning." The room went completely silent. Sophia's protective stance never changed. But something dark flickered across her eyes for just a second. "That's insane," she said firmly. "Dad, he's trying to drag me down with him. Don't believe a word." But Carter wasn't finished. "You think I'm lying? Ask her about the offshore accounts. Ask her who researched every banking law. Ask her who made the anonymous call to the FBI." Sophia's hand squeezed my arm gently. "Dad, don't listen to him. I would never hurt you," she said, voice full of caring. I gently removed her hand from my arm. That grip suddenly felt different, controlling. "Sophia, step back," I said calmly. "Dad, you're not seriously listening to him." "Are you?" she asked, voice rising. "Carter, tell me exactly what you mean," I said. Carter straightened as much as the handcuffs allowed. "She came to me 11 months ago, said we could frame you and take everything, that it would be perfect," he said. "That's a complete lie," Sophia shouted. "I saved you, Dad." Detective Morales pulled out his phone and checked his notes. "Mrs. Bennett. The anonymous tip that started the investigation came from your personal cell number," he said. Of course it did. I was worried about Dad's mental state. I thought he was having a breakdown. Sophia answered quickly. "What about the inheritance law research on your office computer?" Carter pressed. Morales looked at his notes again. "We found extensive research on inheritance when a spouse is convicted of federal crimes." "I was protecting Dad's assets. I was being responsible," Sophia said, turning to me with pleading eyes. "Dad, they're twisting everything I did to help you." "How did you know exactly when to give me that envelope?" I asked quietly. "I saw the signs." "Dad, I heard strange fragments of conversations." "I was trying to save you," she answered. "Still playing the perfect, caring daughter-in-law." "You expect me to believe all of that?" I asked. "It's the truth, Dad. I'm the only one who has been honest with you this whole time," she insisted. I pulled out a small digital recorder from my pocket. "Actually, Sophia, let's hear some real honesty for once," I said. Pressing play, her voice filled the entire room. "Cold and clear, we're almost there. Once my husband goes to prison, that naive old fool will give me everything. He trusts me completely, thinks I'm his savior. The poor man has no idea I've been setting this up for over a year." Silence fell like a hammer. Sophia stared at the recorder, her face cycling through shock, then something much darker. "You recorded me," she finally hissed. "I recorded a criminal conspiracy." I answered, the caring mask completely shattered, her expression turned ugly and vicious. "You think you're so clever. You pathetic old man," she spat. voice completely different now, cold and sharp. "There's the real Sophia," I said quietly. "Yes, here I am." She laughed cruelly. "Do you want to know how much I've hated living in this house, pretending to care about your boring stories? Your dead wife, your pathetic little company." Each word hit like a physical blow. "I've been planning this for over a year. You fool. Every smile, every I love you, Dad. Every concerned phone call was pure acting, and you fell for it like the lonely old man you are." "Sophia, stop," I said, but she was just getting started. "The best part was watching you trust me while I destroyed your life piece by piece," she continued, eyes gleaming with real pleasure. "The look on your face when you opened that envelope. It was beautiful. I felt sick to my stomach." "How could you live with yourself?" I asked. "Easily," she answered, leaning forward. "You were supposed to rot in federal prison while I inherited everything and started my real life without this boring family and this dead-end town." Her eyes were ice cold. "Do you know how many nights I lay awake planning exactly how to frame you? How I fantasized about watching you get arrested," she whispered. "You made it so easy, trusting me completely. I treated you like my own daughter," I said quietly, "and I used every ounce of that trust to destroy you." She replied with a smile, "The saddest part is, you still don't understand how much I despise everything about you." Detective Morales stepped forward. "I think we've heard more than enough," he said. "Sophia Bennett, you are under arrest for conspiracy, fraud, and orchestrating a criminal enterprise." As they led both Sophia and Carter away in handcuffs, Sophia turned back one last time. "You think you've won, old man. You'll spend the rest of your pathetic life knowing the person you loved most was your worst enemy." "No, Sophia," I said quietly. "I'll spend it knowing I finally saw the truth." The office fell completely silent after they were gone. I sat alone at the conference table where I had built my business for 50 years, surrounded by awards and photos that suddenly felt like they belonged to another life. James Mitchell put a hand on my shoulder. "Logan, I'm so sorry you had to go through this," he said softly. "So am I answered. "But I'm glad it's finally over." 5 months later, I sat in federal court as the judge read the verdicts. Carter received 10 years for fraud and money laundering. Sophia received 18 years for masterminding the entire conspiracy. But the biggest shock came during the full investigation. The person Sophia had been speaking to in that recorded phone call wasn't just an accomplice. It was her lover, a private wealth manager named Tyler Harrison from a competing firm. They had been having an affair for 4 years, planning not just to steal my money, but to disappear together once Carter and I were both out of the picture. Tyler Harrison received 16 years as co-conspirator. As Sophia was led away after sentencing, she looked back at me one last time. No remorse in her eyes, no regret, just cold calculation even in defeat. That night I sat in my kitchen with a simple cup of coffee, looking around the house that finally felt different, empty, but also clean. The poison was gone. I thought about the 10 years Sophia had lived under my roof, sharing family dinners, celebrating holidays, calling me dad every single day. Every moment had been a performance, every kindness calculated. She had studied me like a predator studies prey, learning my weaknesses, my loneliness, my need for family after Dorothy died. But here's what I learned the hard way: evil can be patient. Evil can wear the kindest face. Evil can live right beside you for years without you ever suspecting. But truth has a way of rising to the surface, and justice, though sometimes slow, always finds its way. I had lost a son to greed and a daughter-in-law to pure deception. But I had gained something priceless, the knowledge that I could still recognize right from wrong when it mattered most. At 71 years old, I proved to myself that I was not the naive old fool Sophia believed me to be. The construction business is gone, sold to pay legal fees and restitution. The house is on the market now, too big and too full of ghosts. But I still have my freedom, my integrity, and the deep satisfaction of knowing that the people who tried to destroy me are exactly where they belong. Sometimes the people closest to you are the ones sharpening the knife behind the warmest smile. Sometimes the person rushing to save you is the one who put you in danger in the first place. And sometimes, when you think you have lost everything, you discover you still have the most important thing of all, the ability to fight for the truth. Looking back on this nightmare, I realize God has a way of protecting us even when we can't see it. If I hadn't overheard that phone call, if I hadn't trusted my instincts that night, I would be rotting in federal prison right now for crimes I never committed. This story taught me that evil doesn't always come with horns and a pitchfork. Sometimes it comes with a warm smile, calls you dad, brings you coffee every morning, and sits at your dinner table for 10 years. Sophia fooled everyone, even me, for far too long. But here's what I want you to remember: trust your gut. When something feels wrong, it usually is. I ignored those little warning signs for months because I wanted so badly to believe in the goodness of family, and it almost destroyed me. God gave us instincts for a reason. Use them. The hardest lesson of all is that sometimes the people we love most are capable of the greatest betrayal. But that doesn't mean we stop loving. It means we learn to love wisely. This story isn't about becoming suspicious of everyone around you. It's about staying alert while keeping your heart open. I've shared stories on my channel for years, but this one cuts the deepest. At 71, I finally learned that wisdom isn't about age. It's about paying attention. Sophia counted on my trust, my loneliness, my longing for family after losing Dorothy. She almost won. Thank God she didn't. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments.